right, I get to talk about another book from my teenage years. So I talked about Jurassic Park and Lost World, which I always will associate with my senior year of high school. But there was a novel before that I will always associate with my sophomore year of high school. Now, I'm going to be frank. Sophomore year was a very dark place for me personally. In fact, I could go as far as to say from seventh grade to my senior year, partway through my senior year, were very dark times in my life, rivaled only by the fire I went through in my 20s. But this is one of the highlights from an era where I don't remember a lot of it. And that is World War Z by Max Brooks, also known as the quintessential history of the zombie war. Max Brooks is the son of famous comedy director Mel Brooks. And in this story, Max Brooks talks about the zombie infestation that starts in a small village in China and takes over the world, and the aftermath of such a thing like that. And rather than explain the story to story, because it's a bunch of interviews of different political figures, survivors, soldiers, just civilians from around the world, we see. We get a picture of what would logically happen if there was a worldwide zombie outbreak in the year about the late 2000s. What would have happened, which kind of stays true to how it would be in the mid 2020s. Not a lot has changed. There's a few goofy things that date the book. For instance, the United States president is clearly not, Donald Trump. I believe they're implying that it was Barack Obama, but they're smart enough to not date the book by naming any of the world leaders other than Fidel Castro, which dates the book a bit because, of course, Cuba, the embargoes on Cuba are not a thing anymore. And they weren't a thing not long after. That was near the end of the Obama administration that the embargo was lifted on Cuba. So it's kind of interesting. That dates the book a bit. But otherwise, it weirdly parallels, especially early on, what we saw with the 2020 pandemic. And with that being said, it adds another layer of being disturbing. And just how the world fell apart and then countries slowly put themselves back together. And how nothing would ever be the same after something like that. And it parallels a bit of the two world wars. And it's very interesting how each government handles it in their own ways. The audiobook, which I listened to this time around instead of reading it, has a star-studded cast, but what always will stick in my head is Mark Hamill voices a soldier that is interviewed a few times in the book, and specifically the Battle of Yonkers, New York. Mark Hamill does a masterful job acting that. It's really good stuff. Would I recommend World War Z in the year 2025? Absolutely. This is the best zombie novel that has ever been written. It is well worth your time to check out. I would rank this probably a 4.5 out of 5. I wish there was more to it and that there was like a follow-up series, like a shorter book dealing with the zombie crisis in the 2020s, in this universe, in their 2020s, how that would look. Makes me really wish that that exists, but at the same time, who knows if it would be nearly as good. So, anyway, have a nice day.